All right, let's take a look at another example. Okay, here is our rational expression, 4 minus x squared divided by 7x minus 14. Let's see, is there anything that we can factor out of a 4 and a negative x squared? Well, no. There is no GCF here. But is it possible to factor the top of the fraction like this? Well, yes, there actually is. I hope that you recognize this expression here as being something called a difference of two squares. Remember when we learned about a difference of two squares? A difference of two squares will always look like this. Something squared minus something else squared. In this case, the first thing that's being squared is a 2, right? 2 squared gives 4. And the other thing that's squared is an x. Now the way to factor a difference of two squares always is going to be like this. 2 minus x times 2 plus x. This is the way that you always factor a difference of two squares. There's a minus sign here and a plus sign here. Alright, so let's write that down. 2 minus x times 2 plus x. Now let's look at the bottom of the fraction. Is there anything that we can factor out of a 7x and a negative 14? Well, yeah, it should be pretty clear to you that we can factor out a 7 from both of those. We can factor out a GCF. What's left over is x minus 2. Now from here, it might seem that there's nothing that you can cancel out from the top and the bottom. But look at what we have here. We have 2 minus x on the top and x minus 2 on the bottom. It turns out that these two are basically exactly the same, except 2 minus x equals the negative of x minus 2. Do you see why that's the case? If you were to distribute that minus sign, we would get negative x plus 2. And if we flip the order, this is 2 minus x. So they're the same exact thing. So watch what we're going to do here. We are going to replace this 2 minus x with a negative times in parentheses x minus 2. Like that. Everything else stays the same. And then, now it's clear to see that we can cancel out an x minus 2 on the top and an x minus 2 on the bottom. And this leaves us with negative 2 plus x divided by 7. So here's the moral of the story. If you see something on the top of the fraction which looks similar to the bottom of the fraction, except the order of the two terms are reversed, all you need to do is introduce a negative sign, and that will allow you to flip the order of one of the factors, and that will allow you to cancel them out. Alright, once we've got that, the last step is to identify the excluded value. Do you see what any excluded values are? I hope you said that x cannot be equal to positive 2. That is the only excluded value, because that would make this factor here equal to 0. Alright, that is it for this problem. Let's take a look at one last problem in which we simplify rational expressions. Alright, here we are asked to find the product of two rational expressions, x plus 5 divided by 7x minus 21 and 14x divided by x squared plus 3x minus 10. Now, this looks scary, but don't worry about it. All it means is simplify this gigantic rational expression here. Now, we have a multiplication sign in the middle, and you'll see what that means in a second. All right, now, first step, can we factor out anything from x plus 5? Well, no. There's no GCF, so we're going to keep x plus 5 the same. What about the bottom of that same fraction? Is there a GCF that we can factor out of both terms? Well, yeah, we can factor out as 7. What's left over is x minus 3. All right, so this is going to be multiplied by 14x. There's only one term there, so we really can't do anything with it. So keep that the same. Now on the bottom here we have a quadratic trinomial. That means that we're going to have to factor this into something that looks like this. 2 sets of parentheses. We can use the shortcut here, because there's an invisible 1 multiplying the x squared. That means the factored form is going to look like this. X in the front, x in the front. The question is, what is the magic number that goes here and here? Well, let's think. What two numbers multiply to equal -10 and add to equal 3? I hope you said that +5 times -2 equals -10, and +5 plus a -2 is equal to +3. So those are our magic numbers. X plus 5 times x minus 2. Now, look at this multiplication sign in the middle. There should be nothing scary about that. Watch what we're going to do here. I'm going to get rid of that multiplication sign. I'm going to extend this fraction bar so that it connects both fractions. And then I'm going to put this in parentheses, and put a multiplication sign in between them. And then I'm going to put a multiplication sign down here. Okay? So this multiplication sign in the original product of these two rational expressions just means that everything on the top is multiplied together. Of course, you have to be careful and put parentheses around things. And everything on the bottom is multiplied together. That's all it means. Now, once we see that, this means that anything over here can be canceled out with anything down here. So it should be clear to you that we can cancel out an x plus 5 over here and an x plus 5 over here. And that leaves us with 14x divided by 7 times x minus 3 times x minus 2. But wait, there's one last thing we can cancel out. I forgot to do this. Right here we have a 14, and down here we have a 7. Now 14 is just equal to 2 times 7, is it not? So that means that we can cancel out this 7 and that 7. And this leaves us with 2 times x divided by x minus 3 in parentheses times x minus 2 in parentheses. And this looks like it's all that we can do to simplify this expression. Remember, we cannot cancel out this 2 and that 2. We can't do that. And we can't cancel out this x with either of the x's on the bottom. We cannot do that. Okay, so this is as simplified as we can get. But there's one last step. We also need to state any excluded values. In this case, there are 3 excluded values. Do you see what they are? The 3 excluded values, in other words, the 3 numbers that will make this whole thing equal to 0 are x cannot be equal to 3, x cannot be equal to -5, and x cannot be equal to +2. This would make this factor equal to 0. This would make this factor equal to 0. And this would make this factor equal to 0. All right, so that is it for simplifying rational expressions. I hope that you are now ready to begin practice.